I walked through that door and saw everyone staring at them. My husband. My sister. Sitting on my parents' couch like they belonged there together. My dad's face was red, veins showing on his forehead. My mom had tears running down her cheeks, but she wasn't making a sound. Nobody was moving. The clock on the wall kept ticking, but everything else had stopped. Cole's hand was too close to Marin's leg. Her hair was messy. They both looked caught. And I knew. God, I knew. My name is Talia Brent. I'm 28 years old, and I work as a billing assistant at a medical office downtown. I've always been the one who fixed things. When Dad lost his job back in 2008, I was the one working 2 shifts to help with groceries. When Mom got sick, I was the one coordinating doctors and insurance. When Marin needed a place to stay after she got fired, I opened my door without thinking twice. That's what big sisters do, right? But standing there in that living room, watching my entire family look at me like I was about to break, I realized being the fixer only works when people aren't trying to break you on purpose. Dad stood up first. His hands were shaking. Daughter, sit down. We need to talk. But I didn't sit down. Would you? After 3 months of watching your husband come home late? After finding receipts for things you never got? After your mom suddenly can't look you in the eye at Sunday dinner? I'd known something was wrong for so long that walking into this moment felt less like a surprise and more like proof. And the proof was sitting right there on that ugly brown couch my parents have had since I was in middle school. No, I said. My voice came out steady. Stronger than I felt. I'll talk first. Marin's face went white. Cole started to stand, but I held up my hand and he froze. Have you ever had that moment where you realize you're done being scared? Where anger becomes something cold and clear instead of hot and messy? That's where I was. Past crying. Past begging. Past hoping I was wrong. Talia, let me explain, Cole started, but I pulled out my phone. Explain what? I asked. Explain why you've been sleeping with my sister in my house while I'm at work? Explain why you told her you never loved me? Or should we start with the part where you two were planning to wait until after Christmas to tell me so you wouldn't ruin the holidays? My mom made a choking sound. Dad looked like he wanted to put his fist through the wall. But I kept my eyes on Cole and Marin. She was crying now, mascara running down her face, reaching for my hand like we were still kids and I could fix this too. Talia, please, Marin whispered. It's not what you think. Really? I tapped my phone screen. Because I have recordings that say different. That's when Cole's face changed. The color drained right out of it. He knew exactly what I meant. See, 2 weeks ago, I'd installed a voice-activated recorder in our living room. The same living room where they'd sit together after I left for work. The same living room where they'd laugh about how stupid I was. How trusting. How I'd never figure it out because I was always too busy trying to hold everything together. You want to talk, Dad? I looked at my father, this man who drove trucks for 30 years and taught me to change a tire when I was 12. Let's talk about what they've really been doing. I pressed play. My hand wasn't shaking anymore. Isn't it strange how calm you can feel when you're absolutely destroyed inside? The recording started and Marin's voice filled the room. Clear as day. She's so desperate to be the good sister, she'll never suspect. We could do this for months. Then Cole's voice. Softer. Weaker. I never meant for this to happen, but you make me feel alive. Talia's always working or worrying about everyone else. When's the last time she looked at me the way you do? My mom stood up and walked out of the room. I heard the bathroom door close. Dad just stood there breathing hard through his nose like he does when he's trying not to lose it completely. Cole and Marin weren't looking at each other anymore. Marin was sobbing into her hands. Cole was staring at the floor like he could disappear into it. Turn it off, Cole said quietly. Please, Talia. Turn it off. But I didn't. Because the next part was important. The part where Marin said, what if she finds out? And Cole answered, she won't. And if she does, what's she gonna do? She needs me. Her whole life is built around being married and having a family. She'll forgive anything to keep that dream alive. Dad moved so fast I almost didn't see it. He grabbed Cole by the shirt and shoved him against the wall. Get out of my house, he said through his teeth. Get out before I do something I'll regret. Mr. Brent, please. Now. Cole stumbled toward the door. He looked back at me once. opened his mouth like he had something to say. But what could he say? Sorry? That he made a mistake? That it meant nothing? The recordings proved it meant everything. At least to him and Marin. To me, it just meant I'd wasted 3 years on someone who saw my loyalty as weakness. After he left, the house got so quiet I could hear the heater clicking on. Marin was still on the couch, curled up like a kid, crying hard enough that her whole body shook. Part of me wanted to comfort her. Old habits die hard, right? But a bigger part of me felt nothing. Just empty space where love used to be. Talia, she finally managed. I'm so sorry. I don't know what happened. It just... Don't. I cut her off. Don't tell me it just happened. Don't tell me you didn't mean it. You moved into my house, ate my food, borrowed my clothes. And then you decided to take my husband too. That doesn't just happen, Marin. That's a choice. You made it every single day for months. She looked up at me with red, swollen eyes. For a second, she looked exactly like she did when we were kids and she'd broken something and needed me to take the blame. But we weren't kids anymore. And I was done protecting her from consequences. Dad came back into the room. His hands were still shaking, but his voice was calm. Scary calm. Marin, you need to leave. Get your things and go. Where am I supposed to go? She sounded so small. So lost. That's not our problem anymore, Dad said. You made your choice. Live with it. She looked at me one more time, waiting for me to save her. To tell Dad she could stay. To forgive her because that's what I always did. But I just stared back until she got up and walked out. The front door closed behind her, and I finally let myself breathe. Baby girl, Dad said, putting his hand on my shoulder. Are you okay? Was I okay? My marriage was over. My sister betrayed me. My family was broken. But standing there in that house where I grew up, where I learned what love was supposed to look like, I realized something. I wasn't okay, but I was free. And maybe that was better. I already filed for divorce, I told him. Changed the locks this morning. Called a lawyer 3 days ago. Dad's eyes went wide. You knew we were going to find them? No, I said. But I knew I was done either way. Finding them just made it easier. Mom came back into the room, her face blotchy from crying. She hugged me so tight I could barely breathe. I'm so proud of you, she whispered. I'm so sorry this happened, but I'm so proud. We stood there for a while, the 3 of us, not saying much. What was there to say? Life had just exploded, and we were standing in the debris trying to figure out what to do next. But at least we were standing. At least I hadn't crumbled the way Cole thought I would. My phone buzzed. A text from Cole. Can we please talk about this? I love you. This was a mistake. I deleted it without responding. Have you ever noticed how people only call things mistakes after they get caught? He'd made a choice. Every late night. Every lie. Every time he touched my sister and then came home and kissed me. Those weren't mistakes. Those were decisions. What are you going to do now? Dad asked. I looked around the living room. At the pictures on the wall of Marin and me as kids. At the couch where I'd just watched my life fall apart. At my parents looking at me like I was both broken and somehow stronger than before. I'm going to survive, I said. That's what I do. But as I drove home that night, hands gripping the steering wheel, I felt something building in my chest. Not sadness. Not anger. Something else. Something that felt dangerous and necessary at the same time. Because surviving wasn't enough anymore. I wanted them to understand what they'd done. I wanted consequences. I wanted justice. And I had one more secret they didn't know about yet. One more piece of information that would change everything. As I pulled into my driveway and saw the dark house that used to feel like home, I touched my stomach and wondered if I should tell anyone. Wondered if keeping this last secret would protect me or destroy me. Because I was pregnant. And Cole had no idea. If you're still watching, you need to hear what happens next. Subscribe now because this story is just getting started. Drop a comment if you've ever had someone betray you like this. Were you able to forgive them? Or did you do what I did and choose yourself instead? Let me know below because you're not going to believe what I did 3 months before this all exploded. 3 months before I walked into my parents' house and destroyed my marriage, I was happy. Or at least I thought I was. Isn't that how it always works? You're living your life, going through the motions, thinking everything is fine until you look back and realize the signs were everywhere. You just didn't want to see them. It started on a Tuesday. Maren called me crying so hard I could barely understand her. She'd lost her job at the salon for showing up late too many times. Her landlord was threatening eviction. She had nowhere to go and no money saved because Maren never thought about tomorrow. She only thought about right now. And right now, she needed help. "Can I stay with you?" she asked between sobs. "Just for a few weeks until I figure things out?" I looked at Cole across the kitchen table. He was eating cereal and scrolling through his phone. We'd been married for 3 years and together for 5. He worked construction, came home tired most days, but he was steady. Reliable. The kind of guy who showed up when he said he would. At least that's what I thought. "What do you think?" I asked him, covering the phone. "Maren needs a place to stay." He shrugged. "She's your sister. If you want to help her, help her." See, that's the thing about Cole. He never said no to anything. Never fought. Never pushed back. I thought that meant he was easygoing. Turns out it just meant he didn't care enough to have an opinion. But I didn't know that yet. So I told Maren yes, and 2 days later, she showed up with 3 suitcases and a smile that felt too bright for someone who'd just lost everything. "Thank you so much," she said, hugging me tight. "You're literally saving my life, Talia. I promise I won't be any trouble." That promise lasted about a week. Then the little things started. She'd use my shampoo without asking, borrow my jewelry and forget to return it, leave dishes in the sink, stay up late watching TV in the living room so Cole and I had to go to bed early. Small stuff, right? The kind of stuff you ignore because you don't want to seem petty. But then bigger things happened. She started dressing different around the house. Shorter shorts, tighter shirts. She'd walk past Cole in the kitchen and brush against him just a little too close. At first, I thought I was imagining it, making something out of nothing because I was stressed from work and tired from keeping the house running. One night, I came home late from covering someone's shift. The house was dark except for the living room TV. I walked in and found Cole and Maren on the couch together watching some movie. Nothing weird about that, right? Except Maren was in my robe. The silk one Cole bought me for our anniversary. And she was sitting close enough that their legs were touching. "Hey," I said, trying to sound normal. "What are you guys watching?" They both jumped like I'd caught them doing something wrong. Maren pulled the robe tighter. Cole grabbed the remote and turned down the volume. "Just some action thing," he said. "You hungry? I saved you some dinner." I ate at work. I looked at Maren. "That's my robe." "Oh." She laughed, but it sounded fake. Nervous. "Yeah, sorry. I got out of the shower and mine was still wet. Hope that's okay." It wasn't okay. None of it was okay. But what was I supposed to say? Stop wearing my clothes? Stop sitting next to my husband? It sounded crazy even in my head. So I just nodded and went to bed alone because Cole said he wanted to finish the movie. After that night, I started noticing everything. The way Maren always seemed to need help with something when Cole was around. How she'd laugh too loud at his jokes. How she'd touch his arm when she talked to him. And Cole. God, Cole. He started working later. Coming home smelling like something sweet. Lavender. That's when I realized it was her lotion. The stuff she wore every day. The smell was on him. "Why do you smell like Maren's lotion?" I asked one night as we got ready for bed. He didn't even look at me. Just kept unbuttoning his shirt. I don't know. Maybe I brushed against her or something. "Why?" "Just asking." "You're being paranoid, Talia." He climbed into bed and turned off his lamp. "You've been stressed lately. Working too much. Maybe you should take a day off." That's what he did. Made me feel like I was the problem. Like my gut telling me something was wrong was just anxiety or exhaustion. And for a while, I believed him. I told myself I was being ridiculous. That Cole loved me. That Maren was my sister and would never do something like that. But then I started paying attention to my family. Mom stopped calling as much. When she did, she'd ask how I was doing in this careful voice like she was worried about something. Dad got quiet whenever I mentioned Cole or Maren. At Sunday dinner, everyone seemed tense. Like they knew something I didn't. "Is everything okay?" I asked Mom while we were doing dishes one night. You've been acting weird. She didn't look at me. Just kept scrubbing the same plate over and over. Everything's fine, honey. Just tired. Mom. Really, Talia? I'm fine. But her hands were shaking. I went home that night and couldn't sleep. Kept staring at the ceiling while Cole snored beside me, thinking about all the little moments that didn't add up. The whispers that stopped when I entered a room. The way Marin suddenly volunteered to do laundry and came back wearing my perfume. How Cole's phone was always face down now. Always locked. Always out of reach. The next morning, I did something I'd never done before. Something I'm not proud of but also don't regret. I went through Cole's wallet while he was in the shower. Found a receipt from 3 days ago. Victoria's Secret. $87. I thought maybe he'd bought me something. A surprise. But there was no surprise. No gift hidden anywhere. Just a receipt for something someone else was wearing. My hands started shaking. My chest got tight. Have you ever felt your whole world shift and you can't do anything to stop it? That's what that moment felt like. Standing in my bedroom holding proof that my husband bought lingerie for someone who wasn't me. I heard the shower turn off. Quickly put the receipt back and went downstairs. Marin was in the kitchen making coffee in one of my t-shirts. It hung off her shoulder in a way that felt intentional. Calculated. Morning, she said, smiling. Want some? No thanks. I grabbed my purse. I'm going to work. This early? It's barely 7. I have stuff to catch up on. I sat in my car in the parking lot at work for 20 minutes before I could make myself go inside. Kept thinking about that receipt. About the robe. About the lavender smell. About my mom's shaking hands. It was all connected somehow. I just needed to figure out how. That afternoon, I made a decision. I told my boss I needed to leave early. Told her I wasn't feeling well, which wasn't exactly a lie. I felt sick. Sick with worry. Sick with suspicion. Sick with the thought that maybe, just maybe, I'd been blind to something happening right in front of me. I drove home the long way, trying to calm down. Trying to think rationally. But rational flew out the window when I turned onto my street and saw Cole's truck in the driveway at 2 in the afternoon. He was supposed to be at a job site until 5. He told me this morning he'd be late. Might not be home until 6. So why was his truck here now? I parked down the street. My heart was pounding so hard I could hear it. Could feel it in my throat. I sat there for 5 minutes. 10. 15. Watching my house like it belonged to someone else. And then I saw movement. The front curtain shifting. A shadow passing by the window. If you're watching this and thinking I should have just gone inside, you don't understand. Sometimes you know, but you don't want to know. Sometimes the not knowing feels safer than the truth. So I sat in my car and I waited. And I watched. And 30 minutes later, the front door opened. Marin stepped out wearing the same clothes she'd had on that morning. But her hair was different. Messy. Like she'd been lying down. She looked around before walking to her car. Looked guilty. Looked caught even though nobody was there to catch her. Except I was there. Watching. Seeing. Finally understanding what everyone else must have already known. Cole appeared in the doorway. Stood there watching her go. He wasn't wearing a shirt. At 2:30 in the afternoon on a Wednesday when he was supposed to be working. And when Marin drove away, he went back inside and closed the door. I couldn't breathe. Actually, couldn't get air into my lungs. Tears were running down my face, and I didn't remember starting to cry. Everything I'd built my life around, everything I'd believed about my marriage and my sister and who I was, collapsed in that moment. Right there in my car on my own street watching my house like it belonged to strangers. But instead of going inside and screaming, I did something different. Something cold. I drove to the store and bought a voice-activated recorder. The kind people use for meetings or lectures. Small enough to hide anywhere. And I knew exactly where I was going to put it. Subscribe if you want to hear what I found on those recordings. Comment below if you've ever caught someone you loved in a lie. What did you do? Did you confront them right away, or did you wait like I did, gathering proof until you had enough to destroy them? The recorder was smaller than I expected. Fit in the palm of my hand. Black and sleek and completely invisible once I tucked it behind the books on our living room shelf. The same shelf where we kept photo albums from our wedding. Pictures of us smiling. Pictures of me believing everything was real. I set it to voice-activated mode. It would only record when people were talking. Could hold up to 40 hours before I'd need to download the files. 40 hours of truth. 40 hours of my life falling apart in real time. But I needed to know. Needed to hear it. Because a part of me still hoped I was wrong. That hope died 3 days later. I'd gone to work like normal. Kissed Cole goodbye at the door like nothing was wrong. Told Maren I'd be home late because we had end-of-month billing to finish. None of it was true. I left work at noon, sat in a coffee shop for 4 hours, and tried not to think about what might be recording in my living room. Tried not to imagine what I might hear. When I finally came home at 6, Cole was in the garage working on his truck. Maren was making dinner. The house smelled like garlic and tomatoes. Everything looked normal. Felt normal. Like I'd invented the whole thing in my head. How was work? Cole asked when he came inside, oil on his hands. Long, I said. I'm tired. Go rest. Dinner will be ready soon. I went upstairs and closed the bedroom door. Grabbed the recorder from the living room shelf when nobody was looking. My hands were shaking so bad I almost dropped it. Plugged it into my laptop and put in my headphones. Took a deep breath. Pressed play. Static at first. Then footsteps. Then Maren's voice, clear as day. Is she really working late? Yeah. Cole's voice. Said she wouldn't be home until 7. Good. A pause. The sound of movement. I've been thinking about you all morning. Maren, we need to be careful. She's starting to notice things. Like what? I don't know. She's been acting weird. Asking questions. She's always weird. Always worrying about everything. That's why she's so exhausting to be around. They laughed. Both of them. Laughing about me. About how exhausting I was. How boring. How I worked too much and cared too much and never saw what was right in front of me. And then the sounds changed. Breathing. Silence. More breathing. I ripped the headphones off. Couldn't listen anymore. But I had to. So I forced myself to put them back on and keep going. 3 hours of recordings. 3 hours of my sister and my husband talking about me like I was stupid. Like I was just this obstacle they had to work around until they figured out how to be together. What if she finds out? Maren asked at one point. She won't. And if she does, what's she gonna do? She needs me. Her whole life is built around being married and having a family. She'll forgive anything to keep that dream alive. That's when I stopped crying. That's when something inside me went cold. Because Cole was wrong. He'd confused my loyalty for weakness. My love for desperation. And in doing that, he'd given me the thing I needed most. Permission to walk away without guilt. I recorded everything over the next 2 weeks. Hours and hours of conversations. Plans they were making. How they'd wait until after Christmas to tell me because they didn't want to ruin the holidays. How Maren would find her own place and Cole would slowly distance himself, and I'd never suspect they'd been together because the timeline wouldn't match up. They had it all figured out. Every detail. Every lie. Every step of how they'd break my heart and make it look like it just happened naturally. Like people grow apart. Like love fades. Not like two people actively worked behind my back to destroy my life while pretending to care about me. During those 2 weeks, I had to pretend everything was normal. Had to sit across from them at dinner. Had to sleep next to Cole at night. Had to watch Maren walk around in my clothes, use my things, live in my house while she planned to take my husband. Do you know how hard that is? Knowing the truth but not being able to say anything because you're not done gathering evidence? But I wasn't just recording. I was planning. Called a divorce lawyer named Patricia Chin who worked 2 towns over. She was sharp. No nonsense. Listened to everything I told her and didn't judge me for recording conversations in my own house. In Ohio, one-party consent is legal, she said. As long as you're part of the conversation or it's in your home, those recordings are admissible if it comes to that. I want the house, I told her. I want the car that's in my name. I want every single thing that's mine, and I don't want him to get anything. Do you have proof of adultery? I have 40 hours of it. She smiled. Actually smiled. Then let's make sure he leaves this marriage with exactly what he brought into it. Nothing. I opened a separate bank account Cole didn't know about. Started moving money from our joint account little by little. Not stealing. Just taking what I'd earned and protecting it. Changed passwords. Made copies of documents. Found the title to the house that was only in my name because my parents helped with the down payment and they'd wanted to make sure I was protected. Turns out they'd been protecting me all along. They just couldn't say it directly without proof. Honey, my mom said one day when I stopped by. We were alone in the kitchen. Are you okay? Really? I'm fine, Mom. Because if something was wrong, you could tell me. You know that, right? I looked at her. At the worry in her eyes. At the way she was twisting her hands together like she wanted to say more but couldn't. What would be wrong? She opened her mouth. Closed it. Finally said, your father saw something last week. Cole's truck at the Pine Grove Motel on Route 9. Marin's car was there too. My stomach dropped. When? Last Tuesday. Around 2 in the afternoon. The same day I'd worked late. The same day Cole said he had to meet a supplier. The same day Marin said she had a job interview. All lies. All of it. Mom, I said carefully. Did Dad tell anyone else? Just me. He wanted to tell you, but I said we needed to be sure first. Didn't want to worry you if there was some other explanation. She was crying now. But there isn't another explanation, is there? No. I hugged her. Let her cry into my shoulder. There isn't. But Mom, I need you to do something for me. I need you and Dad to act normal. Can you do that? Normal. I'm handling it. I promise. But I need a few more days. She pulled back and looked at me. Really looked at me. And I saw her realize that I wasn't falling apart. That I'd already known. That I was 3 steps ahead of everyone else. You're sure you're okay? I'm going to be. 2 days after that conversation, I filed for divorce. Didn't tell Cole. Didn't tell Marin. Just filed the papers and had them ready to be served at exactly the right moment. Changed the locks on the house and made copies of every key. Canceled Cole's access to our joint credit card. Closed accounts. Protected everything I'd worked for. And then I waited for the right moment to let it all explode. Because here's what I'd learned over those 2 weeks of recording and planning and pretending. Betrayal doesn't break you if you don't let it. It can fuel you instead. Turn you into something sharper. Something that knows its worth and refuses to settle. The right moment came when my dad called me at work. His voice was shaking. Talia, come home. Come to our house right now. What's wrong? Just come. Please. I drove there thinking something had happened to Mom. Heart attack. Accident. Something medical. But when I pulled up and saw both my parents' cars and Cole's truck and Marin's car all in the driveway, I knew. This was it. They'd been caught. Really caught. And my family had finally seen enough to force a confrontation. I grabbed my phone where I had the recordings saved. Checked my purse where I kept copies of the divorce papers. Took a deep breath. And walked inside ready to end this. That's where we started, remember? Me walking through that door. My dad saying we need to talk. And me saying no. Me talking first. Me taking control of the moment instead of letting them explain or manipulate or lie their way out of what they'd done. What happens next is where everything changes. Where secrets come out that nobody expected. Subscribe if you haven't already because the next chapter is where I drop the bomb that destroys them completely. Comment if you think Cole deserved what's coming or if I went too far. I want to know what you'd do in my situation. The recording was still playing when my dad grabbed Cole and shoved him against the wall. My mom had left the room. Marin was sobbing on the couch. And I just stood there holding my phone like it was a weapon. Because that's what truth is when people have been lying to you. It's a weapon. Turn it off, Cole said again. His voice cracked. Please, Talia. But I didn't turn it off. I let it play. Let everyone hear Marin say, she's so desperate to be the good sister, she'll never suspect anything. Let them hear Cole respond, I know. That's what makes this easy. Dad's grip tightened on Cole's shirt. You came into my daughter's house. Ate her food. Slept in her bed. And you did this. Mr. Brent, please. Don't. Dad's voice was cold. Scary. I'd never heard him sound like that. Don't say another word. Just get out. Cole looked at me. Really looked at me for the first time in months. And I saw it then. Not guilt. Not remorse. Just panic. The panic of someone who got caught and is scrambling for a way out. Talia, we need to talk about this. Alone. Without everyone here. Why? I asked. So you can lie more? So you can tell me it didn't mean anything? That you love me? That it was a mistake. It was a mistake. No. I cut him off. A mistake is forgetting to buy milk. A mistake is being late for dinner. This was a choice. Every single time you touched her. Every time you lied to me. Every time you came home and kissed me after being with my sister. Those weren't mistakes, Cole. Those were choices. Maren stood up from the couch. Mascara streaked down her face. Hair messy. Looking younger than 24. Looking like the little sister who used to follow me around and copy everything I did. Except this time she copied too much. Talia, I'm so sorry, she said, reaching for me. I never wanted to hurt you. It just happened. We didn't plan it. You didn't plan it? I stepped back from her hand. You moved into my house. Wore my clothes. Used my things. And then you decided to sleep with my husband. For months. And you're telling me you didn't plan it? I mean, we didn't plan to fall for each other. Stop. The word came out harsh. Final. Don't romanticize this. You didn't fall for each other. You're not star-crossed lovers. You're just two selfish people who wanted something that wasn't yours and took it anyway. Mom came back into the room then. Her eyes were red, but she wasn't crying anymore. She looked at Maren the way you look at a stranger. Someone you used to know but don't recognize anymore. Get your things, she said quietly. You need to leave. Mom, please. Now, Maren. Where am I supposed to go? That's not our problem anymore. Mom's voice was steady. Hard. You made your choice. Now live with it. Cole finally pulled away from Dad. He stood there looking at all of us like he couldn't believe this was happening. Like he thought he'd have more time. More control over how this played out. Talia, can we please talk privately? Just the two of us. About what? About us. About our marriage. About what happens next. I already know what happens next. I pulled folded papers from my purse. The ones Patricia had prepared. You're being served divorce papers tomorrow morning. The house is in my name. The car is in my name. I've already moved money from our joint account into a separate one. Changed the locks. Canceled your credit cards. You have 24 hours to get your things out of my house. His face went white. You can't do that. I already did. I handed the papers to him. This is a copy for your reference. The official ones will be delivered by a process server at 9 a.m. tomorrow. Talia, you're not thinking clearly. You're upset. Let's just. I'm thinking more clearly than I have in months. My voice didn't shake. Didn't waver. I'd practiced this moment in my head so many times it felt like reading a script. You said I'd forgive anything to keep my marriage. That my whole life was built around being a wife and having a family. You were wrong. My life is built around my self-respect. And I'm not giving that up for you. Maren was still crying. Still looking between me and Mom and Dad like someone would save her. But nobody moved. We all just stood there in that living room where we'd celebrated birthdays and Christmas mornings and graduations. Where we'd been a family. Before everything broke. Please, Maren tried one more time. I know I messed up. I know I hurt you. But you're my sister. You're supposed to forgive me. I'm supposed to trust you, I said. I'm supposed to rely on you. I'm supposed to know you'd never hurt me on purpose. But you did all those things anyway. So no. I don't have to forgive you. Dad walked to the door and opened it. Both of you need to leave. Now. Cole grabbed his jacket. Started toward the door. Then stopped and turned back to me. This isn't over, Talia. We're married. We have history. You can't just throw that away because... Because what? I interrupted. Because you had an affair with my sister? Because you lied to me every single day? Because you made me feel crazy for noticing things were wrong? Yeah, actually, I can throw that away. Watch me. He stared at me for a long moment. Then walked out without another word. Maren followed, still crying, still looking back like I might change my mind. But I didn't. I watched her leave and let the door close behind her and felt nothing. No sadness. No anger. Just relief. Mom hugged me as soon as they were gone. Held me tight the way she did when I was little and scraped my knee or had a bad dream. I'm so proud of you, she whispered. I'm so proud. You knew, I said into her shoulder. You and Dad both knew. We suspected. But we didn't have proof. And we didn't want to hurt you if we were wrong. How long? She pulled back and looked at me. Your father first noticed something about 6 weeks ago. Little things. The way Marin talked about Cole. The way he looked at her when you weren't watching. Today when he saw them at that motel again, he called me and said we had to tell you. So we called them both here. Told them we knew. Wanted to give them a chance to tell the truth before we told you. What did they say? They denied it. Said we were seeing things that weren't there. And then you showed up with those recordings and she shook her head. I raised her better than this. I raised both of you better. You did, I said. This isn't your fault, Mom. It's theirs. We sat on the couch, the three of us. Dad put his arm around me. Nobody talked for a while. Just sat there in the quiet processing everything that had just happened. Everything that had changed in the span of 30 minutes. What are you going to do now? Dad finally asked. I thought about the question. About my house that felt empty now. About my job and my future and the life I'd have to rebuild from scratch. About starting over at 28 in a small town where everyone would know what happened. About being the girl whose husband left her for her sister. And then I thought about something else. Something I'd been holding onto for 3 days. Something that changed everything. I need to tell you both something, I said slowly. Something I haven't told anyone yet. Mom's hand found mine. Squeezed it. What is it, honey? I took a deep breath. This was the part I'd been afraid of. The part that made everything more complicated and more real. The part that meant I couldn't just walk away and start fresh somewhere else. I'm pregnant. The words hung in the air. Mom gasped. Dad went completely still. For a moment, nobody said anything. Then Mom started crying again, but different this time. Not sad crying. Something else. How far along, she asked. 8 weeks. I found out right before I installed the recorder. I looked at both of them. Cole doesn't know. I was going to tell him 2 weeks ago, but then I heard the first recording and I couldn't. I couldn't tell him while he was doing that to me. Does he need to know? Dad asked carefully. Legally, yes. Eventually. But not yet. Not until the divorce is filed and I have my ducks in a row. Mom pulled me close again. We're going to help you. Whatever you need. You're not doing this alone. I know. And I did know. Because that was the difference between my family and Cole. Between loyalty and betrayal. My parents showed up. Always had. Always would. Cole only showed up when it was convenient. We talked for another hour. Made plans. Dad said he'd start building a crib in the spare room. Mom started listing things I'd need. Baby clothes. Diapers. A car seat. They were already preparing to help me raise this child. Already stepping in to fill the space Cole should have occupied. When I finally drove home, it was dark. The streetlights were on. And as I pulled into my driveway, I saw Cole sitting on the front steps waiting for me. His truck was parked on the street. He stood up when he saw my car. I sat there for a moment, hands on the steering wheel, trying to decide if I had the energy for another confrontation. Finally got out. Locked the car. Walked toward him. The locks are changed, I said before he could speak. You can't get in. I know. I just needed to see you. To talk. There's nothing to talk about. Please. He looked rough. Tired. Like the weight of what he'd done was finally hitting him. 5 minutes. That's all I'm asking. I crossed my arms. Stayed several feet away from him. Fine. 5 minutes. He ran his hand through his hair. A nervous habit he'd had since I met him. I know I messed up. I know I hurt you. But Talia, we've been together for 8 years. Married for 3. That has to count for something. It did count for something. Until you threw it away. I didn't mean to. Don't say you didn't mean to. You meant to. Every time. He nodded. Looked down at his feet. You're right. I did. And I'm sorry. I'm so sorry. But can we try to fix this? Go to counseling? Work through it. Work through you sleeping with my sister? I almost laughed. No, Cole. Some things can't be fixed. Some things you don't get to come back from. So that's it? You're just done. I'm just done. He stepped closer. I stepped back. Talia, please. I love you. I know I have a terrible way of showing it, but I do love you. And that's when I almost told him. Almost said the words that would have changed everything. That I was pregnant. That he was going to be a father. That no matter how much he'd hurt me, we were still connected now. Forever. But I didn't. Because standing there looking at him, I realized something. He didn't deserve to know. Not yet. Maybe not ever. He'd made his choice. Now I was making mine. If you loved me, I said quietly, you wouldn't have done what you did. Love doesn't work that way. Love doesn't betray. It doesn't lie. It doesn't sneak around and make you feel crazy for trusting your gut. I know. No. You don't know. Because if you knew, you wouldn't have done it in the first place. I turned toward the house. Your 5 minutes are up. Wait. His voice stopped me. Is there anything I can say? Anything I can do? To make you even consider forgiving me? I looked back at him. At this man I'd married. This man I'd trusted. This man who'd destroyed us for someone who wore my clothes and slept in my guest room. And I felt nothing. Not love. Not hate. Just emptiness where feelings used to be. No, I said. There's nothing. I walked inside and locked the door behind me. Stood there in my dark house listening to him sit back down on the steps outside. He stayed there for an hour. I heard him eventually leave, heard his truck start and drive away. And then I was alone. I touched my stomach. Felt nothing yet, but knew something was there. Something growing. Something that would be mine even if it was part his. And I made a decision right then. This baby would never know a father who chose someone else. Who treated loyalty like it was optional. Who thought sorry was enough. This baby would know better. Would grow up seeing what real love looked like. What self-respect meant. What it meant to choose yourself when everyone else chose wrong. My phone buzzed. A text from Cole. The baby isn't mine either, is it? My blood went cold. How did he know? How could he possibly know? If you're still here, subscribe now. Because what happens next is the final piece of the story. The part where I answer Cole's question and reveal what I've really been planning all along. Drop a comment. Tell me if you think I should have told him about the baby or if keeping it secret was the right choice. This is almost over. Don't miss the ending. I stared at that text for a full minute. The baby isn't mine either, is it? How did Cole know I was pregnant? I'd told my parents an hour ago. Nobody else. Not my doctor. Not Patricia, my lawyer. Nobody. My hands were shaking as I called him. He answered on the first ring. How do you know? I asked. No hello. No explanation. Just that. I heard you, he said. At your parents' house. After I left, I stood outside the window. I heard you tell them you're 8 weeks pregnant. You were spying on us? I needed to know what you were planning. What you were going to do to me. His voice got harder. So is it mine? Or did you cheat too? The accusation hit me like a slap. After everything he'd done, he had the nerve to accuse me. Are you serious right now? You've been acting strange for weeks. Working late. Being secretive. Installing recorders in our house. How do I know you weren't doing the same thing? I laughed. Actually laughed because the alternative was screaming. You're unbelievable. You sleep with my sister for months and now you're trying to make me the bad guy. I'm just asking a question. The baby is yours, Cole. Unfortunately. I hung up before he could respond. But the damage was done. He knew now. Which meant I'd lost my last bit of control over the situation. He'd want rights. Custody. To be involved. All the things he'd given up when he chose Marin over our marriage. I called Patricia the next morning. Told her everything. He knows about the baby. He's going to use it against me. Try to drag out the divorce or ask for custody or... Talia. Her calm voice cut through my panic. Breathe. In Ohio, pregnancy doesn't prevent divorce. And given the evidence you have of his affair, no judge is going to give him primary custody. You're going to be fine. You're sure? I'm sure. Now let's talk about what happens next. What happened next was the hardest 6 months of my life. Cole fought the divorce. Hired a lawyer who tried to paint me as unstable. As someone who'd broken into his privacy by recording conversations. As someone who was keeping his child from him out of spite. But Patricia was better. She presented the recordings. The motel receipts. The messages on Cole's phone that he'd forgotten to delete. The testimony from my parents about catching him and Maren together. The case was airtight. The judge granted the divorce in 4 months. Gave me the house, the car, and primary custody of the baby once it was born. Cole got visitation rights, but only supervised until the child was 2 years old. He tried to argue that was unfair. The judge told him he should have thought about that before committing adultery. Maren? She disappeared. Left town 2 weeks after the confrontation. I heard through Mom that she moved to Cleveland. Got a job at a bar. Was dating someone new. Cole tried to make it work with her for a month, but they fell apart. Turns out a relationship built on betrayal doesn't have a solid foundation. Who knew? I spent those months preparing. Painted the nursery. Built the crib with Dad's help. Went to doctor's appointments with Mom. Felt the baby move for the first time while sitting in my living room alone and cried because it was beautiful and sad all at once. Work was hard. Everyone knew what happened. Small towns don't keep secrets. But instead of judgment, I got support. My boss gave me flexible hours. Coworkers threw me a baby shower. People I barely knew brought meals and baby clothes and offered to help. The baby came on a Tuesday in March. 7 pounds, 6 ounces. Perfect fingers and toes. Cole's dark hair, but my nose. I named her Quinn. It means wise. Strong. I wanted her to be both. Cole showed up at the hospital 3 hours after she was born. Stood outside the nursery window looking at her through the glass. I watched him from my room. Saw him cry. Saw him press his hand against the window like he could touch her through it. Part of me felt bad for him. Part of me knew he was missing this because of choices he made. But mostly I just felt tired. Tired of being angry. Tired of hating him. Tired of carrying all this weight. Do you want him to come in? The nurse asked. I thought about it. About Quinn growing up with a father who'd destroyed her family before she was even born. About forgiveness and second chances and whether some mistakes were too big to come back from. Not yet, I said. Maybe tomorrow. But tomorrow I changed my mind. And the day after that too. Because every time I looked at Quinn, I saw what Cole gave up. Not just me. Not just our marriage. But this. This tiny perfect person who would grow up knowing her father chose wrong. 6 months after Quinn was born, I got a promotion at work. More money. Better hours. A chance to build something stable for us. Dad built a playpen. Mom bought more clothes than one baby could ever wear. And slowly, my life stopped being about what I'd lost and started being about what I'd gained. Cole saw Quinn every other weekend. Supervised visits at my parents' house because I didn't trust him alone with her yet. He'd show up with toys and diapers and try to be present. But you could see it in his eyes. The regret. The knowledge that he'd traded everything for nothing. Maren sent a card on Quinn's first birthday. Didn't sign it. Just wrote, "I'm sorry," in handwriting I'd recognize anywhere. I threw it away. Some apologies come too late. People ask me if I ever think about forgiving them. If I ever wonder what would have happened if I'd given Cole another chance. And the truth is no. I don't wonder. Because I know exactly what would have happened. He would have done it again. Maybe not with Maren. Maybe not right away. But eventually. Because people who betray you once will do it again if you let them. The life lesson here isn't about revenge. It's not even about betrayal. It's about knowing your worth. About understanding that loyalty and love and trust aren't things you beg for. They're things people either give you or they don't. And when they don't, you walk away. I'm 30 now. Quinn is almost 2. We live in a little house I can afford on my own. We have good days and hard days. Days when I miss being married. Days when I'm grateful I'm not anymore. Days when Quinn asks about her daddy, and I have to figure out what to say. But mostly we have days where it's just us. Making breakfast. Going to the park. Reading books before bed. Building a life that's ours. A life nobody can take because nobody gave it to us. We made it ourselves. Last week I ran into Cole at the grocery store. He looked older. Tired. Asked how Quinn was doing. I showed him a picture on my phone. She was wearing a little blue dress. Smiling at the camera. Looking exactly like the future neither of us planned, but only I got to keep. She's beautiful, he said. I know. Talia, he stopped. Started again. I know I don't get to ask this. I know I don't deserve it. But is there any chance, any at all, that we could try to be friends? For Quinn's sake. I looked at him. This person I used to love. This person who'd hurt me more than anyone else ever had. And I realized something. I didn't hate him anymore. Hate takes energy, takes focus, takes caring. And I didn't care enough to hate him. Maybe someday, I said. But not today. He nodded. Understood. Walked away without pushing. And I finished my shopping and went home to my daughter and my life. The life I'd built from the ruins of the one he'd destroyed. If you made it this far, thank you for staying. For listening. For letting me tell this story. I hope you learned what I learned. That betrayal doesn't have to break you. That self-respect is more important than any relationship. That sometimes the best revenge is just living well without the people who hurt you. Subscribe if you haven't already. Share this with someone who needs to hear it. Someone who's going through their own betrayal. Someone who thinks they have to forgive and forget to move forward. You don't. You can just move forward. That's enough. Comment below. Tell me your story. Tell me how you survived. Tell me what you learned. We're all in this together. All trying to figure out how to love people without losing ourselves. How to trust without being stupid. How to build lives worth living even when they don't look like we planned. Quinn is calling from her room. Nap time's over. Life keeps moving. And that's the point. It keeps moving. With or without the people who hurt us. The trick is making sure we're moving forward too. Thanks for being here. Thanks for listening. And remember, you're stronger than you think. Braver than you know. Worth more than anyone who can't see that deserves. Now go live like you believe it.